Hello, fellow litigators. Court is now in session. My gosh, there's so many different information leaking out about Brian Koberger. Very sick, sinister man. But I found it quite interesting. The FBI was watching Brian for many days. It seems like they were watching him for weeks because they spotted him meticulously cleaning his car, guys, trying to get it all, as much DNA out of that car as he could, as much blood out he can get out of that car as he could, in my opinion. And they saw him wear surgical gloves. So a lot of people in the chats were saying, well, it's not abnormal to wear gloves in the winter. Well, you guys need to pay attention to details. The FBI saw Mr. Koberger wearing surgical gloves. Is it typical for people to wear surgical gloves in the winter? I don't know, somebody's going to always have some excuse for him to say, oh, well, maybe because it's COVID and he's wearing gloves because he doesn't want germs. Okay, if you want to keep making excuses for this guy, you go on a date with him and we'll see how that goes. So for the people who want to look at reality and have some common sense, let's take a look at this article. This is from New York Post, and it says, Brian Koberger meticulously cleaned his car before arrest report. It sounds like he was trying to hide something. It sounds like a consciousness of guilt. So it said accused killer Brian Koberger cleaned his infamous white Hyundai Elantra meticulously after the University of Idaho murders, and was seen wearing surgical gloves several times, guys, before finally being collared, according to law enforcement sources. This sounds like a consciousness of guilt. This sounds like someone who is taking strategic steps to cover up a crime. The quadruple murder suspect cleaned his car inside and outside, not missing an inch, guys. Wow. The source, who was briefed on observations made by investigators in the lead up to Koberger's arrest, told CNN on condition of anonymity. So they wanted to be anonymous. Koberger, 28, was also seen wearing gloves multiple times outside his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, before he was arrested there on December 30th, the source told the network. He sounds like he took from the book of Ted Bundy, because Ted Bundy was doing the same thing around his time. He was trying to be very careful about any DNA being released. But you could tell what person goes around wearing gloves, cleaning gloves to go take out trash, just weird. And he's wearing these gloves outside his parents' home. Just really odd, right? I mean, who does that? People can claim COVID, but I really want to know what people were saying before this all happened. Was he wearing gloves before the Idaho killings? If he wasn't, and then all of a sudden now he's changed his behavior where he's meticulously cleaning his car inside and out, and he's wearing gloves all around. And notice, he meticulously cleans his car inside and out. But when the traffic stop was conducted on him when he was on his way to Pennsylvania, notice how dirty his car was. I think he intentionally made that car dirty so it wouldn't stand out, so they wouldn't really notice that it was white. I know it sounds weird, but he knew that they were looking for a white Elantra. And the more you're on the road, the more likely he's visible to law enforcement. So he tried to be obscure by making his car extra dirty, because why would all of a sudden his car be that dirty if after the killings he meticulously cleans his car? I'm just saying his behavior sounds like this man had a consciousness of guilt and he was taking proactive steps to cover up what he did, in my opinion. The PhD student, who had been under surveillance for 4 days, at one point was observed leaving the house at about 4 a.m. and putting bags in the neighbor's garbage bins, the source said. Wow, guys, you could tell how very sneaky he was. So he would take the trash out from his parents' house when he was in Pennsylvania. He would take the trash out at 4 a.m. in the morning, and then he would put the bags in his neighbor's bins. That is so sneaky. So why would he be so paranoid, guys, while he was in Pennsylvania when he was thousands of miles away from Washington. He must have knew that the officers were onto him because he was still being extra cautious in Pennsylvania. And to put the garbage in his neighbor's garbage bin, it really goes to show that he was really proactively taking steps to try to cover himself because he knew that he made a rookie move to leave that sheaf there. Now I'm starting to think he didn't intentionally leave the sheaf, that it was a rookie move and he made a mistake, because why would he be taking all these subsequent steps to try to cover up his crime then if he wanted to be caught? Because he was trying to clean inside and out of his car meticulously. He's wearing gloves everywhere, these surgical gloves. When he even drives all the way with his father to Pennsylvania, now, even though he's thousands of miles away, he's still taking proactive steps. He wakes up 4 a.m. to take trash out and put it in his neighbor's garbage can, and wearing surgical gloves anytime he's outside. Yeah, this guy sounds like he knew that the officers were onto him, that they're going to be looking for him, and that they're going to try to get his DNA because he left his DNA at the crime scene when he left that sheaf. That's what I'm starting to believe now, because he looked like he was extra meticulous. And what innocent person does that? What innocent person waits till 4 a.m. on purpose to put garbage in their neighbor's garbage bin and wear gloves everywhere and meticulously clean your car out? But all of a sudden, when you're going on a long trip and the authorities have already announced that they're looking for your white car, basically, now all of a sudden your car's extra dirty during traffic stops. Yeah, guys, this sounds like he planned this out. It sounds like he wanted that car to be dirty on the trip to Pennsylvania because he didn't want it to be so noticeable that it's a white car. That's what I'm thinking, because he knew that authorities were looking for a white Elantra. He's taken way too many suspicious steps, guys, to obscure and hide from the authorities. Sounds like somebody who's guilty, their behavior. On December 27th, agents removed items from Kohlberger's garbage bins, and the bags they saw him put into the neighbor's bin. Ooh, and the contents were sent to the Idaho crime lab. So the authorities were really watching this man. It looked like they were following him. It looked like they were following this man around for days, and they were waiting for him just to drop something. Wow. And he tried to hide it for a while. But what is done in the dark will come to the light. It always comes to the light. They said Brian Kohlberger scrubbed his car, was seen wearing surgical gloves, and dumped garbage into his neighbor's bins while under surveillance, a law enforcement source told him. Ooh, so some law enforcement authorities are leaking out information when they know they're under a gag order, but they're still leaking out information. And look, Kohlberger smiles at his public defender. Look at that sinister, evil smile. Even when he smiles, he looks evil. Just a dark, cold, decrepit soul this man is. This is what I wanted to show you. The authorities, when they were surveying him, they noticed that he was meticulously cleaning his car inside and out to try to scrub up any DNA he could get off, right? In my opinion. That's just my opinion. But notice when he's going on this long trip to Pennsylvania, his car is, and I get long trips, your car can get dirty during the trips. I understand that. But guys, this car looks extra dirty. And they made different stops into different towns. So he could have stopped to get his car cleaned. I don't think he wanted to get that car cleaned, because the more dirty it was, the less visible that it was white. You know, he didn't want it to be so noticeable that it was a white car. That's what I'm thinking, because he knew he was going to be on the road. It was already announced to the public that they were looking for a white Elantra. So he was trying to ensure this car was as dirty as possible so it wouldn't be as noticeable that it was a white car. People wouldn't pay too much attention to it. Because that's one thing I really noticed when they had that car stop. I was just like, man, I understand it's a long drive. And when you're driving, you're getting a lot of dirt and stuff on the car. But something tells me this was on purpose. And it's contrary to his prior behavior of meticulously cleaning inside and out before this trip. Now, all of a sudden, you let your car be this dirty. Sounds intentional to me, guys. This guy sounds like he was being very sneaky and trying to take every step that he could to tried to obscure the authorities. But again, what's done in the dark always comes to the light. You can run, but you can't hide. The quadruple murder suspect did not miss an inch while cleaning his white Hyundai. So that's what they're saying. He didn't miss an inch, and the authorities were watching him do this. So why all of a sudden now his car is this dirty while he goes on a long trip? And after the fact that it has been announced that they're looking for a white Elantra. Sounds like he was strategically trying to make this car extra dirty and not as noticeable on the road while he was taking that trip to Pennsylvania. This man was doing everything he could to be sneaky. Look at his eyes. He didn't know what to expect when he had that when he was stopped on December 15th. He thought it was going to be the moment in time where he was going to be arrested. That face looks like somebody who is in straight fear and terror that he's about to be caught red-handed. This doesn't look like a face of someone who just got a typical traffic stop. His dad looks like, confused, like, why'd you stop me, sir? Whereas Brian looks like he thinks it might be the moment when he's going to be pulled over for the quadruple murder. And while he's with his dad, he was terrified the whole time. Koberger and his father were pulled over in Elantra twice during cross-country journey home to Pennsylvania. The next day, DNA analysis showed a match between the family's garbage and the knife sheath found at the scene of the crime. Authorities then asked a judge to issue an arrest warrant for Koberger. The source said the Pennsylvania State Police SWAT team carried out a dynamic entry on December 30th by breaking the doors and the windows. So that was what happened. These poor, lovely souls stalked by this sick man. He literally chose these victims. He chose them. Something tells me Kylie was the target, but we shall see. We shall wait and we shall see. You could always, you never know, because then there was that Mad Greek restaurant. So, but he is obviously a sick man. Let's take a look, guys, at the video about this. There was a news report about this on video that I thought was pretty good and helpful for us to get more information about this. And they were saying it was the FBI who was watching him. So let us take a look.
Allegedly dumped trash into the garbage cans of his parents' neighbors. Allegedly. Suspect Brian Koberger allegedly dumped trash into the garbage cans of his parents' neighbors as he hid evidence linking him to the 4 Idaho student murders. FBI agents watching his parents' home in Pennsylvania reportedly saw Koberger wearing surgical gloves go house to house at 4 a.m. with garbage bags.
The agents immediately go retrieve the trash. That's a good thing they did, because they found in that trash discarded items that matched back to the sheet that was left beside one of the dead victims on the bed.
Chilling new details are emerging about the morning after the murders. Prosecutors say he actually returned to the murder scene at 9:12 a.m. that morning and stayed in the area for 14 minutes.
We know, based on this affidavit, a knife sheath was left in the home. Was this the murderer returning, wanting to try to somehow collect what he forgot at the scene? Or, as we know in our experience, sometimes murderers go back to the scene just to see what's happening.
We're also learning more about what Koberger did later that day.
Cell phone records show that roughly 8.5 hours after the murders, Koberger drove an hour from his home to the small town of Clarkston, Washington. He drove past a drive-through coffee stand and went shopping at an Albertsons grocery store.
The next day, he drove 100 miles to Johnston, Idaho, an isolated area of the state. Why remains a mystery.
I don't know what, if anything, we'll find there, except possibly the murder weapon.
Legal experts say the evidence in the case seems to be overwhelming.
You have a very powerful piece of DNA evidence from the scene linked back to him.
We also have all of the surveillance video, all of the cell phone records.
So what could his defense possibly be? Famed defense attorney Mark Garrigo says it may not be the slam dunk everyone thinks it is.
The defense is going to bring up the fact that his phone was not in the area, did not ping.
during the time of the crimes, number one. Number two, that the FBI changed their story on the Elantra as to what year the model was. And number three, that they, so far, the DNA is not admissible, what they put in the probable cause affidavit.
I spoke with the father of murder victim, Kaylee Gonsalves. So if he were to try to strike a plea deal to save his life and avoid the death penalty, how would you feel about that?
I'd be against it and I would fight it, but I still have other parents that I have to work with.
This is a process where the family is prepared for, they're ready for the long haul, and we'll all get through it.
More questions are being raised today about surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen.
And we'll get into that later on another video. But what I thought was striking, guys, is how the day after he drove all the way to a far location in Idaho, way out in the middle of nowhere. And now that started to make sense. He probably drove out there to stash the knife. But see, this guy was so dumb. Okay, the more I hear details about this, how he wore surgical gloves everywhere he went, how he strategically, meticulously cleaned his car inside and out, cleaning every single inch of the car to try to seem like he was trying to get rid of some DNA, how he drove all the way to this very far distance in Idaho, just randomly for so no unknown reason, which in my opinion, it was to stash that murder weapon. How he also meticulously got up around 4 a.m. every morning with gloves on to go stash his garbage in the neighbor's garbage. All of these steps show someone who is meticulously trying to take steps to obscure and hide this crime. So with that being said, all those behaviors, and in conjunction with the fact that a couple hours later after the murders, he drives to the area, the crime scene, and sits there and waits for 14 minutes. It's as if he was contemplating whether he should go back in and try to find that sheath. Now it's starting to look like, because at first I was stuck on thinking it was staged. Now to me, it's starting to look as though he did accidentally leave that sheath there and he panicked. And he knew that they were going to have his DNA because of that sheath being left, because he did that rookie move. And so he was trying to take every subsequent step to prevent any of his DNA from being released and try to avoid the authorities in every way possible. It seems like it because he took so many different steps, guys, so many different steps. And now it looks like he traveled all the way to this random place in Idaho, which I know the authorities went over there to see if they could find that knife, because that's probably where he more than likely stashed it, because it doesn't make any logical sense for why he went there. Another interesting thing about it is when he did stash those items in the neighbor's garbage, they found more items that was associated with the knife. So guys, it sounded like that him leaving the sheath there wasn't an accident. He really did make a rookie move. He really did make a mistake and left it there. It's sounding like, because he's truly taking every subsequent step to try to obscure authorities. And the fact that he had some of the parts of the knife here that was associated with the sheath that was in a garbage bag that he tried to place in his neighbor's garbage, it seems like he was trying to make efforts to stash the different knives, the different evidence in this case. And they ended up finding it. So that's even more incriminating evidence. So, guys, you tell me what you think. But it's starting to look more and more like this guy is guilty. His behavior is so suspect. He's making all these steps to try to hide all of this incriminating evidence. Sounds guilty to me. What you think, guys? What do y'all think about this information? I need to hear from you. But just a disclaimer, all content is alleged, opinions, entertainment purposes only, and Bryan Kohberger is innocent until he is proven guilty. But with the information we have found out on this video, let me know what you think. Do you think all these different steps he took demonstrates his guilt? Or do you think he was just living life? You let me know.